Welcome to Context is King. I'm Eric, joined as always by Ash. How you doing, Ash?
Pretty good.
Good. So, Context is King. You know, we've never discussed the title. Why Context is King?
Sure. So Context is King is a play off Content is King. Now,
Right.
some people attribute it to a 1996 article penned by Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, but that's not actually true. Content is King goes back to Viacom founder Sumner Redstone. And the idea was, as these new distribution platforms and pipes appear, now at the time he was talking about cable, then the value of your content grows because there are these new distribution outlets for your content. So if you fast forward to the internet, the idea was, well, now you have the internet and all of this content that exists now has new shelf to live on. Now,
is it possible to even go back further to Marshall McLuhan with The Media is the Message? I mean, was that the precursor to all this?
Exactly. I mean, Sumner Redstone described something that was happening. Now, the reason why and I wasn't the only one, the reason why I liked Context is King, and I registered the URL, was I used it eventually as like the title of my fourth book, which I kind of have a vague idea of the topics.
Which you're writing right now.
Which I'm writing right now as we're speaking with my feet. No. But the idea for me, context, is really the marriage between content and distribution. Mm-hmm. And that means context. A video about Led Zeppelin on a Led Zeppelin fan page takes one meaning. But a video of Led Zeppelin about a biography, and I'm just thinking randomly stream of consciousness, on a page on plagiarism, totally different context. Right. So context to me is the marriage of content and distribution. And I used to say if content is king, online distribution companies have a lot of power, some would argue even more, than, context is the prince, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what makes it all, it's like the actual relative value, so to speak. So we went with context is king because there's so much when a traditional reporter writes about something, I feel there's a little bit of context missing. And here, as like a media insider, an industry participant, I felt like we were taking things that you read about and just added a little bit of context in them.
And context.tv. This is going to be the...
Yeah, I mean, so I was actually kicking around names. I felt like, look, WatchMojo, what are the content verticals that are most associated with WatchMojo today? Yeah, back in the day we did fashion, business, travel, but realistically today it's gaming, movies, TV, anime, music. It's largely entertainment with like a factual slant. So it's kind of infotainment. I feel like if you're going to launch a gaming channel like Mojo Plays, you want to build off that Mojo brand and give it something that's related, but that's a bit different. But if we were going to launch like a travel brand, you could go with Escape Mojo, but it might make sense to go with something totally different. With business, I viewed it the same way. And it's not really business. We're not here to, give you stock quotes. We're not here to be, Business Insider. We're not here to be Bloomberg. There's a specific area in business where I feel like I've basically for 20 years served the young pro audience. First by writing columns for young professionals. Even WatchMojo, our core demo, sure, it goes from 12 to 45, but it's basically 18 to 34. So here, I think it's more about, what are the things one needs to be aware to succeed in life. And my first book, Course to Success, served that audience. And I think with Context.tv, because I like that idea of context is king and I want to bring it all together, that's kind of like, it was just a name that resonated. And, it's really more of a side project. I think, like we alluded in the previous video episode, is you got to keep your feet moving. At 40, I love entertainment as much as always, but I'm very passionate about these other verticals, but I don't feel the company will be well served if I walked in and said, hey man, we're going to take WatchMojo, where people come for top 10 videos on movies, and force people to watch this travel destination video. It's not really true to the audience's desires.
Let's talk about MsMojo.
Sure.
Because, there's Mojo Talks, there's Mojo Plays, even, Mojo Espagnol or Mojo Français, those at least are still...
Well, yeah, because the idea with Espagnol, Français, Deutsch, and all that was you were basically taking at the core what we were doing on WatchMojo and translating them. And there could have been an argument that we should have like brands that were more unique to that market. But the flip side was there's so much clutter that I felt, well, you want to draft off your strength, right? Mm-hmm. Now with Junior Mojo, it was a very different ultimate end user, kids, but it was going to leverage the educators and the core audience that now has kids or has nephews and nieces for them to say, hey, I like WatchMojo, little Jimmy, why don't you sit down and you could watch these videos because I trust the source it's coming from. MsMojo, you know, to be frank, the name MsMojo was coined by a female employee at WatchMojo. And to me, it just made sense. Now, on day one, we had a lot of pushback. People were like, "Why are you gendering? Why are you, segmenting and all that?"
Especially,
I was like,
you know, these days.
these days, yeah, where it's like, you know, you have a student in I forgot where that got banned from school because he said there's two genders, and then he was like kicked out of school, which is like the other extreme of nonsense. But anyway. The point I want to make is, and the nonsense part being that you can't speak up, not whatever position that person was holding. Notice how I have to clarify what I say as well, too. But the point is with MsMojo, I didn't want to mislead the audience. I felt like, look, the same way that Hearst has Elle or Mademoiselle, we want to be honest and say, look, we can't do stereotypical perhaps, but we can't do top 10 One Direction songs on WatchMojo without the message section, the comment section turning into mayhem. And like I got a 9 and 7-year-old daughter. If they grow up to like, Megadeth and snowboarding and things traditionally associated with male, all good. Doesn't make any difference, But realistically,
you want to give them the option.
No, but realistically, if you go to an Avril Lavigne or Taylor Swift concert, you're going to see more ladies in the audience. And I think we've gotten to a point where we're not honest about that aspect and that reality. So for us, we just said, look, the channel is going to gear predominantly to a female demo because historically, certain segments of the audience of the population have different interests. So with MsMojo, after the initial outrage, which was just the vocal minority, MsMojo makes sense in that 80% of the viewership is female, whereas 80% of the WatchMojo viewership is male. So it kind of made sense to go with that. But those are all still iterative of the core brand because their programming is all similar. With this, I just felt it was an evolution of the company evolving. So you maybe wonder what's this problem.
Right, exactly.
So like in Miami, I was reading this book of the secret history of Lazare Frères and Company. So the Lazare brothers were basically 3 Jewish brothers who in the 19th century started a company, basically a bank for just to dumb it down. They're mergers and acquisitions advisory. And it's kind of like we talk about evolving and the problems we face. And when MsMojo launched, we had a lot of noise, like people saying, "Oh my God, why did you choose it? You're gendering, you're segregating." And I was like, look, we're giving the people what they want. And today you look at the community, it's flourishing and people love it. But it's also important, you asked me when I came back and you're like, "How are you doing?" I said, "Are you glad to be back here?" And I said, "I'm glad to be wherever I am." I think it's important to be positive. So, these guys, I was talking about this in Miami. I go, 3 Jewish brothers in the 19th century in Europe. Could you imagine the prejudice and discrimination they faced? Then they continued to build their company through changes in technology and evolution and all that. And then like they went through 2 world wars, of which the second war, some of the family was in Europe, some of the family was in the US. There's family fleeing France as the Nazis are invading and taking over the country, still trying to build up and run their business as they flee to the US. So as I'm reading this, I just laugh because I go, we've grown to 60 people. And like if on a given day I come in and people are like outraged over MsMojo, I hear them and I understand them, but I kind of smile and go, you know what? I'll take these problems over problems that other people have had to endure in their lives at whatever times they've had.
Like the Louis C.K. line about being on a flight and I can't have the pizza.
Could you quote Louis C.K. anymore? Or is that? But yeah, that's true. I go like, you're getting on a plane. It's like yesterday we were delayed for 3 hours at Fort Lauderdale. And I'm like, who cares? I just want to land. I don't care when I land. Anyway, we're going on a bit of a
truth.
Yeah, we're going on a bit of a sidebar, which is all good. It's the purpose of this show. But yeah, I think the idea is we want to expand, and when we feel we are reinforcing and super serving our audience, the brand will be Mojo related. But if we feel like, look, there's a subset that is going to love this programming, then at that point, it might make sense to venture off in another brand, and hence context.
Context is king, as always. Thanks very much. We'll talk to you guys soon.